Here we go.
How you been? What's the latest? What it do?
I've had 2 people this weekend tell me I look like Lenny Kravitz. How do you think I've been? I mean, I don't see it, but I'll go with it.
Here's the thing I'm going to tell you that I've learned. When you are dark-skinned, you look like the closest dark-skinned person they could. Like any attribute.
Absolutely.
I get so many different things. And sometimes I see it. Sometimes I'm like, all right, I get that.
Like, I can kind of see for you. I can see the Will Smith. I can see the LeBron. I can see those 2. But, like, for someone just to be like, hey, you look like
Idris Elba. And you're like, he's like 2 shades darker than me. And
yeah, that's not even the same. That's not even the same brown.
What's up, bros?
Ayo, ayo, ayo.
Welcome to Bro Meets World.
Bro Meets World.
Your Boy Meets World fan cast. I'm Siege.
What it do? What it do? Your boy Tony Curtis.
Okay, that's where we're at. That's good. That's fine. And yeah, welcome to the 9th episode of Bro Meets World. Yeah. So we're getting into, you know what? We're getting into this episode. I think, again, we feel a little bit differently about it. But that's why we do this podcast, so we can get different opinions.
It's not, again, that it's a bad episode. I feel that because this season keeps doing this thing where we have like a really strong episode and then like 3 mediocre episodes and then a really strong episode. It's a consistency issue is my problem with this season.
I get it. You know what? I feel like we've been spoiled with things like Breaking Bad and like, so it's like where every episode always gets better. So I'm just like, this was the 90s. The fact that we got any good television is actually amazing.
And I feel like if you put a microscope on any 90s sitcom of like, especially sitcoms that were doing like 20 plus episode seasons. Yeah. There's going to be some clunkers.
It's actually really funny. I met at a party last night. I met this guy who's a writer for The Good Place. And
name drop.
Yeah, I didn't drop his name, but I'm just saying. I met a writer, and he and I were talking about how the shorter seasons make for better. The shorter seasons make for better episodes individually.
Absolutely,
because you're not doing all this filler where it's just like we have to hit 22 or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, we can disagree, but for me, this episode was a filler episode. But
okay, so you know what? I will say that towards the end, I had certain feelings. But that being said, let's get into it. So this is our section called Tell Me About It.
Tell me about it.
Where I read the Hulu description of the episode. And this one is Mr. Feeny fouls up Corey's dream to become a professional baseball player.
What? He does what?
He fouls up Corey's dream. I was like,
files up? That's an odd way. Fouls.
Yeah, fouls. Like 3 strikes you're out. Or
okay,
baseball term. That would be strike, but still,
odd way of wording that.
It is. Okay. Well, here's the thing. I was like, it's not a bad description. It's not a great description of what happens, but it definitely is. They tried. Whoever did this was like trying to be punny with it.
I don't know where you stand. I can tell you that I was completely on Feeny's side throughout this entire episode. And I don't feel like he did what that's saying. Well, I feel like he was just wanted Corey to be realistic.
Exactly. But that we're going to get into this. I felt that I'm seeing it more and more, but this season, the first season, is a lot about Corey versus his dad versus Feeny. Like, it's this toggle between the two. And I didn't notice it when I first watched, but you can definitely see.
Well, yeah, Corey, Alan, and Feeny are often paired up. And then you have Eric, Morgan, and Amy that are often paired up.
Correct. It's like A storyline, B summer storyline. And it's almost always those dynamics. I wonder how many that is. We should look into it. But like, still.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So anyway, let's get into the episode.
Ayo.
All right, so our opening scene, we get like this little 60 minutes spoof of Corey being like eyewitness Corey, an expose on the plight of the middle child.
So this is interesting because this is the first we're hearing, at least I feel like the first I can remember, Corey actually blatantly complaining about being the middle child.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you mentioned it earlier, this is supposed to be like the main plot of the series. So
yeah, I did find all of this to be kind of throwaway. Like it's just kind of unmemorable as a opening sequence.
It is, but it also sets up. It's at least it sets up the B storyline in this. That's
Sure.
the whole purpose of it, is to show us like the B storyline.
Which is the B storyline?
Oh, the B storyline is that Morgan and Amy are heading out the door, and we see that they're going to Morgan's friend Stephanie birthday party, and Morgan's wearing a new dress and a gold necklace. And
let's talk about this for a second. How old is Morgan?
Yeah, she's like, let's give her 5 or 6.
Okay, did it strike you as odd at all that Morgan was dressed up like she was going to church to go to a little girl's birthday party?
It did, until later on we meet this family and everything.
They're bougie. They're mad bougie.
The fact that they would throw like their kid a formal 5th birthday or something like that totally makes sense.
I thought that Amy's decision to let her 6-year-old borrow an actual gold necklace was
a lack of foresight. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was. Like, of course something happened to this necklace. There's no reason for a child to have it.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, the B storyline in this one, it's kind of short, but it is fun. It's so much fun and so TV. It's so TV. But before we get there, we got to finish out our opening scene where we find out that Corey is complaining because he feels that as the middle child, Morgan gets everything and he gets nothing. And they're like, well, Corey, you're grounded for calling people in Schenectady to hear a Canadian accent.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
I mean, how else are you going to know what... I can't even say it. Schenectady?
Schenectady.
Yeah, I don't know what that... I would have to call myself.
Upstate New York. And on top of that, I mean, like, everyone... sounds weird in upstate New York, but I had thought about it. This is back when long distance used to cost you.
Oh yeah, long distance used to be a really big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember all those 1-800-COLLECT commercials?
Oh my God, dude.
Everywhere in the 90s.
1-800-COLLECT. I forgot about
because you would have to go to a payphone.
Yeah,
and not pay. That was revolutionary.
I kid you not. The other day, I saw some homeless dude on a payphone. And I was like, "Those things still work?"
Yeah. Who's keeping up with that? Who's going around collecting those coins?
They're filled with heroin needles now. Like that's just what I assume.
That's bad news bears. You don't want to be anywhere near that.
Okay, so that's our opening scene. We do our theme song. Where are you at with the theme song?
Where am I at? Like, with my sanity?
Yeah.
Now it's getting to the point where I'm just I'm rolling my eyes through the whole thing and I'm just kind of waiting for it to be over. I don't pay, like, it's on, but I'm like doing dishes or doing something else. I can't just focus on it.
So after the opening, theme song, we get we're in the class, a scene where we're in the class and they are talking taxation without representation, and we have Minkus as King George and Corey as George Washington, and this goes back to Feeny's whole interactive way of teaching. This is that's way of doing the lesson.
Yeah, that's what I thought of too. I thought this is a very unconventional way to teach this, but who better to teach this way than Mr. Feeny?
Exactly. And you have to see that, like, every time they do a conventional assignment, Corey just doesn't get it. So it does make me wonder if, like, Feeny just has these things up his sleeve in case he gets a class that just can't.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, that whereas everyone else in the class seems to be able to understand things more traditionally, it takes Feeny going the extra mile for Corey to understand it. So maybe Corey just, that's that connection, is that Corey has a special way of learning as George has a special way of teaching.
Exactly. And that's what I said. I wonder if George just has like these for any student who's like not really connecting.
Sure.
I mean, like, he's been doing this for a while. So anyway, on that,
by the way, I thought that Minkus as King George was perfect. Who else would be King George but Minkus?
It's a great dynamic, again, putting those two against each other. And then you have Corey's whole thing was like, we don't need your goods. We're American. We're independent. We'll get our goods from Japan. And you're like, yep. Again, it shows Corey's limited knowledge of like world affairs and how things work. But also, it's a very American answer. That is
Sure,
like a
yeah. Well, I remember that being like a joke that I saw a few times in the 90s about how like people would like from older generations would be like, oh, don't get anything from Japan. And they're like, what? All the best stuff's made in Japan.
Yeah, well,
like I think didn't Back to the Future have a little joke like that?
Well, yeah, because at the time, Japan was the upcoming powerhouse. Japan was the China of the time, where it's like everything they're going to take over, and we're not.
I just remember all the stuff being made there. Like, I guess they just had like mad factories going on in the 90s, at least.
They had like a big economic boom in the early 90s, and then
yeah. Please school me on Japan's 90s economic situation, because I am at a loss.
All right, so we'll put that in the footnotes, because right now you are not going to have me looking a fool.
All right, guys. I just want to let you know, this has all been the big lead up to our new podcast, which we talk about the Japan economics.
All right, I like it. All right,
Japanomics.
So, here's the thing. I wasn't going to do it. I refused. It was a very easy one, and I chose not to do it.
Oh, man.
Okay. But with this, Feeny says that if we do not learn from our history, we are doomed to repeat its mistakes. Again, these are very relevant lessons.
These are also super cliched lessons. Like, we got to learn from our history, or else we're going to repeat it. Is the most cliched history lesson that I've seen in television,
and yet it's the most relevant one to this time and era. That
you ain't wrong, though.
People don't seem to get. So
you ain't wrong, though.
That's one thing I was like, you're right. It may be a cliche, but for some reason, it's just not connecting with us. Maybe like as a country, we should all do.
Sure. It takes some repeating.
Okay, so Corey says that he's over history and he would like to think about his future. And then that's when Feeny proposes a new assignment.
It struck me as odd that Feeny seems to have adjusted his entire lesson plan on the spot to specifically cater to one child. I feel like, yeah, Corey might have a special way that he needs to learn, but why is the rest of the class getting more homework because Corey has questions?
So again, I feel that one of two things are happening. Either George is a genius and understood that this is how this was going to go, and so he just planned for it. Or you're right. We have like a Mr. Belding type situation with Corey and Mr. Feeny, just like Mr. Belding was like obsessed with Zach Morris.
Yeah.
Like everything
seems to be catered around Corey's understanding of things.
Exactly.
For everyone else in the class.
Exactly. But again, they hit on that a little bit later, and I think it's just a trope that we're going to have to deal with. But we should have like a lesson plan change jar or something like this. Like, I don't know. I do want to acknowledge it.
Keep track of every time that Feeny goes off book just for Corey.
Just for Corey. Just for Corey or Corey, Sean, and Topanga?
No, I don't even feel Sean or Topanga get attention yet. They haven't earned it yet.
Feeny proposes a new assignment, and Corey's like, I swear I didn't see that coming. And here's the thing. I have to admit, that is one of the things where it's like he thinks he's getting out of an assignment. And of course, Feeny has an assignment prepared, which is why I think that George is just like a forward thinker.
Or he's just good on his feet. He's spontaneous. He's been doing this a long time. He knows the ropes. He's like, let's change things up, guys. Let's have fun with this.
That's a very good point. But the new assignment is they have to create histories for themselves for their 20th year high school reunion. And then that's when Minkus is like, are you saying this is a pre-union? And I was like, they said it!
Yep.
Anytime a TV show actually does that, where like they say the name, I get so hyped.
Wow.
But they are going to be the graduating class of 2000. And this is when I was like, oh my God, we are so old. Because
no, we are not old. The cast of the show is so old.
I mean, that's a very good point. But like, 2020 is like right around the corner. Yeah. And that would be their 20th year reunion.
That is pretty wild. Something I just did want to point out, I know I'm probably going to have to put a coin in the spoiler jar. They do not end up graduating in the year 2000. They end up graduating in the year 1998 because they skipped 2 grades of high school.
Yeah, I do. I wonder how they even like made that work. You know what? They were just like, it's time for us to graduate. Let's not
They just don't. They just like they start season. I think it's season 5 with them just being like, "Hey, welcome to senior year," and you're like, "What?"
Again, nothing interesting happened in junior or sophomore year. Don't worry about it.
No,
but they have to figure out what. They have to tell Feeny what their profession is, and if they have any children, and if those children are tormenting their 6th grade teacher. And again, I just think this is funny because we know, because we are in the future and we are close to 2020, exactly how many kids everyone has and what's going on.
Because that's true.
Of the spinoff,
Girl Meets World. Yeah,
Girl Meets World. So this is actually pretty interesting just to see, especially since the next question or the next line is, "Can I bring my wife?" And Sean's like, "That's coming from Minkus," and Sean's like, "Who would marry you?" And he turns and is like, "Topanga." And you're right. This is where we get to see.
This is the first time we see Minkus expressing interest in Topanga. And it's funny because it seems from this point on, obviously Minkus is only in the season. They have a Urkel, Laura.
Yes. Yeah.
Screech and Lisa type of relationship. Definitely. I don't really know how like what's the point of it really, other than just to have it there for comic relief? But they are good together.
Yeah, no, I actually think it's comic relief, and then also I think it does kind of tie Topanga in constantly, if that makes any sense. Like they kind of are tethered to each other a little bit, and that's good because that means we get to keep Topanga around.
I actually don't think it adds anything to Topanga's character. I think it fleshes out Minkus's character a little bit more, if anything.
Yeah, but Minkus has been around longer, so I think the idea of them fleshing out Minkus by using Topanga is not. Yeah,
I guess that's true. Kind of getting some spotlight with her. Yeah, I mean, she's a joy to have on the cast. As soon as I saw her in the episode, I was thrilled.
So this is what Topanga's response is, that she's not sure if she believes in marriage.
She doesn't know if she believes in the institution of marriage.
Yeah, and that's when Minkus is like, "I've seen your future, babe, and it's me." It's just that little thing where I like it because Minkus is both nerdy but also overly confident.
Yeah, I guess that's what I mean by like fleshes out Minkus's character a little bit. That we get to see this side of Minkus that isn't the overly prepared for class or getting picked on by the other kids. You have him kind of like showing a dominance of sorts, which is somehow works with his character.
It does. It's funny. The more we talk about Minkus, the more I realize that he has this way of being a total nerd that owns his nerdom and also kind of a bully. Like, not really, but like he gives as good as he gets.
I feel like Minkus is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he would definitely be cool now. I mean, in the whole have you seen?
Oh yeah, in the post woke world, he rules like supreme. If he's in high school now, the Minkus is of school now are living the dream.
Exactly. That's what all of 21 Jump Street is about. Like the reboot is how all the nerd kids are actually like the cool ones.
I mean, it's true. I mean, like, even if you watch like old 80s movies, like I'm like, yo, Ducky is so hip. Like,
yeah,
why
exactly.
Choose him.
So anyway, we get a new scene and we're in the cafeteria and original 13 kid is back.
Yawn. Pass. Yawn.
But he is at the table. We have to acknowledge that he's here. And all the kids are talking about what they're going to go as with this assignment. Sean says he's going to go as a plumber because that's what his dad does. And so
a tire salesman.
Oh, tire salesman. So sorry, tire salesman. But it's really interesting because this is when we start to see little hints of Sean's backstory. Like we know he has family, but we're not really aware of like their social demographic or anything like this.
Sure, we're tiptoeing into it, and then the next episode we really dive into it.
Exactly.
But it's interesting that he dreams of being what his dad is.
Exactly. Well, because at this age, I think it's kind of they're showing. I mean, Corey kind of does it all the time. They're at the age where they still idolize their dad. Yeah,
and I I guess it would have just been interesting to see Sean have something that was more distinct to his personality, I guess, to kind of give him some depth as well.
Well, it's funny because on that, Corey's like, that's such a boring answer. Why would you want to be something boring? And Sean's like, I'm just lazy. So, I mean, in a way, it is very telling of his character.
You're right. He owns up to it.
He's like, this was the easiest thing to do. I know how to do it. I know the background that I need to have to flesh this out. Zero research needs to be done, and I can like coast by. And I think that's
unless you're a tire salesman that gets laid off.
You know what? Coin jar.
Coin jar. How does a tire salesman get laid off? We'll get there.
All right. So anyway, third seat kid who we find out has a name. His name is Larry.
Larry. Cool name, bro.
Larry is going as Feeny because he says imitation is the sincerest form of butt kissing. And I have to admit, it's a stupid idea, but like
Larry's kind of like I just want to paint this picture for our listeners. I don't know if you guys have seen the cartoon Hey Arnold, but if Sid from Hey Arnold was a person, like Sid, it would be Larry.
Yes, I agree.
Just a little skeevy, similar in appearance and overall aura. Yeah.
That's actually really funny. He's like Sid. I like it. You know what? If we cared more about him, I would just call him Sid going forward. But original third seat kid still works for me.
Yeah, I don't even know how much of them we're going to see going forward. So we'll see.
All right, but after all of this, Corey is going as a center fielder for the Phillies because that's what he wants to do. Because as we know,
of course he does.
Baseball is everything. And then
I love it too that he says it, and immediately Sean's like, "You're not even that good of a player, bro."
Yeah, exactly. And then we do like this weird thing of like, are we going to be men or are we going to be men with boring jobs? And they do like this, like I don't know. It's like
this kind of weird Tim Allen grunt.
Tim Allen grunt is the perfect way of putting that.
And they do it in unison, like it's something they've done before. Like it was like a thing they were trying to start doing maybe, but it didn't flush out.
Are they watching Home Improvement? Like what is this like a
Well, Home Improvement did film like next door, and that they did have their school sessions with the kids from Home Improvement.
Oh wow, look at that little fun fact, that little trivia.
I know.
Oh, so
you'll actually see Sean on an early episode of Home Improvement before Flipping Swirl.
Maybe that's a little shout out. I don't know. I actually like that little factoid. But yeah, that was weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, next scene, Amy and Corey are working on Corey's project, and Corey is really excited. He says that Feeny's going to be blown away by the future he's planning.
I guess I had a few questions about this project because it seems that Feeny he assigned this really off the cuff. Like, hey, this is just you guys are going to come up with your own histories. We saw Feeny assign this assignment. However, it seems like when it comes time for them to actually bring it to class, Feeny expected a lot of documentation, a lot of details. Corey's here with his mom, like planning Wheaties boxes and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that seems like what a kid would do.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to lie. There was no handout. There was no like backstory. The application of what he wanted for your future is so kind of vague, but maybe that's like the point of the lesson, because when we get to that portion of it, he does just like immediately challenge everyone to think deeper, with the exception of the person who of course already thought deeper.
No, we'll get
you know what, we're not there yet. Yeah. So anyway, we're working on the school project in the living room, and then Morgan enters, and she's wearing a new plastic necklace instead of the one we saw in the intro.
Whoa, are you telling me that a child was irresponsible with a gold necklace?
It turns out that Morgan traded the gold necklace for a plastic necklace, and she made the trade with Stephanie at her birthday party. And she said, black, no trades back.
Black, no trades back. Yeah.
All right.
What's the origin of that phrase?
Thank you. I heard that and I was like, is is this something that, like, if I looked up the origins, I would be not surprised, but at the exact same time offended?
I've never heard the phrase black, no trades back. I thought it was something they made specifically for this episode. You asking about origins has me thinking.
I mean, does it not? Here's the thing. When you know our history of phrases,
I'm just like, no trades back.
So in the new scene, we open up in the classroom and everyone's giving their assignments. We open up with Minkus, and he claims that he bought out Microsoft and he went public and he became the largest software manufacturer in the free world.
Yeah. Again, because Feeny gave no specifics to what this assignment was supposed to be, and we just saw Corey doing arts and crafts with his mom, which is what you would expect from a grade school assignment.
Yep.
When Minkus starts talking about becoming a public company and handing over documentations of creditors, it's just, to me, it just seems like, yo, Minkus doesn't belong in this class. He's on a whole nother level. He needs to be in the boys to Mensa. He needs to be there.
Yeah. You know what's actually weird about this? I was thinking, maybe it's his upbringing, or we don't know a lot about Minkus's family, but there is, I would assume that he's just getting a lot of, help from his family, or his parents are professionals. That's my assumption.
Maybe, yeah. I would love to know more about why he is the way he is, because he is a very interesting character. There is another universe in which there is a show in which Minkus is the lead character, and it's just all about him.
And I think it's called Young Sheldon now.
100%. 100%.
Anyway, but Feeny says that taking over a company is no easy feat, and does he have any proof of assets or bank guarantees? And then that's when Minkus
somehow does
a list of creditors, loan guarantees, and his approval from the Federal Trade Commission. And
I wouldn't even know to think of that now.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. It's just
yeah, he must have help.
Yeah, he has to just be the son of really intelligent people. And again, I'm not, I don't think that means anything about his intelligence. I just don't think that it's all coming from him.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that. That's better.
All right, but he also says that him and Topanga just had their third child, Rainbow Einstein Minkus, which is, again, it's just fun for us, but...
Sure, yeah, I mean, that's what you would expect Topanga to name her kid, I guess.
Exactly. But I also, in a little bit later on, we find out that Topanga didn't really include him, so I don't think that he even consulted her with the name. I feel that he just thought of, what Topanga would...
Of course, he was trying to be sweet.
We see Corey and Sean, and Corey is dressed as a baseball player, and Sean is dressed as a tire salesman and muffler specialist.
Ooh, specialist.
I like that he added the muffler specialist. It's one of those things where it's excuse you.
Yeah. Dream big, Sean.
He even has a gut because he said his dad is fat, his uncle is fat, his grandpa is fat, and he assumes he will be fat. Which again is just funny because in this world it would make sense, but knowing Ryder Strong in real life is the smallest, skinniest person ever.
Well, I also don't believe his parents would be able to provide him with enough food to get fat.
You know what? We're going to keep every single time. You can't help yourself. Just hold it.
We've already established that. All right.
Okay. We check in on Topanga, and she's president of the United States, which at this point would make her the first female president.
I did have thoughts on this.
Okay, yeah.
Not that I had any beef with Topanga thinking she's president of the United States. You know what? I'm for that. Disbanded the military and got rid of nuclear weapons. You do you, boo-boo. The only issue I had with this whole situation is that Feeny seems to be as okay with this presentation as he is with Minkus's, which Minkus had documentation of creditors, and Topanga's yeah, we keep all the men underground and only use them to breed. And Feeny's not oh, hey, maybe I'm going to give you an incomplete until you work this out.
You're right. I mean, like,
you're not thinking
how
through.
How did she get to election? Who were her campaign advisors?
She says everyone in the country wears togas. How did we get from A to Z, Topanga? Fill me in.
You know what?
Style.
I will give you this one. That is a very good question. I mean, to be fair, do we get her grade?
We no, but we just see Feeny just kind of nodding along and then moving on to the next student.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I don't know who he moves on to next. Larry, probably.
Yeah, he moves on to Larry. You said that with such. But yeah, she's saying that the position of being president is like a not a coveted spot, and she disbanded the military and nuclear weapons and all this other stuff. So I think you're right. There should be some follow up to that. But anyway, we move directly on to Larry, third seat kid. And he said that he's come as a teacher. And again, he's dressed like Feeny is, which is, again, television cutesy. But it's like, how does this kid know what Feeny was going to wear?
Yeah. Unless Feeny's just a creature of habit. But yeah.
I mean, which he could be. I'll give him that. He could possibly.
Or Larry / third seat kid is just a creep kid that was looking at all what Feeny was wearing.
You know, honestly, I would see that too. I could see him like biking over to Feeny's early and seeing Feeny get dressed so he would know what to wear. I could see it.
He had duplicates of all of Feeny's suits and was like, all right, this is the one. Got it. I got it ironed. It's pressed.
But Feeny points out, he's like, look, every year someone tries to avoid the assignment by coming as me. And I like it. He goes, but this is where he does grill the third seat kid on it. He's like, do you know what tenure is?
Yeah.
The kid's like, I get that. He's like, do you know how to define curriculum? He's like, I can look it up.
Yeah. It seems like all of these kids should have got incomplete. Like if Minkus is the standard, like if that's what he was looking for, then none of these kids did the assignment right.
You know what? And that is even when we in the episode, we don't even get Corey's grade in the end.
There's no closure to this at all.
Yeah. So I do wonder if maybe he did like give them a chance to complete it by the end of the week. Because as you said, there was no thought put into anyone's assignment other than Minkus's.
As far as I know, this assignment was assigned the day before. Minkus got all that documentation done overnight.
You know what? Actually, you're right, because we know this by the necklace. The necklace is our timeline. So, very much so.
What are these standards that this sixth grade teacher has that he is grilling these kids based on like Wheaties boxes? It's their kids.
You know what? That's very, very good point. So, I mean, let's just go with that. Let's say that.
I told you, man, this episode's a filler, bruh. This episode's a filler.
It wasn't well thought out. Fine. But anyway, we get to see Corey, and this is when it happens with Corey. Corey shows up with his little box of Cheerios, and he says that he's a center fielder for the Phillies. And he notes that he has some thought into this. He's been playing since the 11th grade. He didn't graduate high school, but he makes $6 million a year.
Is that a thing where I've heard of athletes being able to skip college and go straight into the pros? Do athletes get to skip high school?
I don't think so at all. I
what's that?
I was like, no, I don't. I think that's a wish, but maybe they could in the 90s. I don't know. Tell us if you know. Just let us know if it was ever possible to just not go to high school and go straight into the pros. Maybe like when baseball was invented.
Yeah, like we have this 17-year-old on our roster. What?
Well, actually, at that point in time, if he's skipping high school, it's like a 14-year-old?
Yeah, this is a rookie of the year situation we got on our hands.
Actually, yeah. How did that movie deal with it? Did he go to school at all?
That movie's riddled with flaws. We could not look to that to be our structural.
But I'm just saying, maybe Corey got his inspiration from this. If that's your source material, who's to blame?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, guys.
All right. But Corey says that he has investments and buildings and he's diversified. And Feeny just keeps picking at his story, which again, to be fair, we don't know that Feeny didn't do this to everyone because he kind of does it to Larry. And he did ask Minkus if he had these things. So it seems like Feeny really is doing this to every student. Minkus was just the only one prepared.
Well, I mean, Topanga did come in a toga and said that she was going to make the men live underground, and that had no rebuttal. So
no, but we don't
it's
know.
A toss-up.
We didn't end. I'm just going to say I'm giving Feeny the benefit of the doubt and saying that almost everyone got an incomplete, which is why it's like we never really get this closure because everyone.
Oh, I'm okay with assuming that most people got an incomplete because I think that's the whole thing is that the kids weren't interested in history, and he's trying to tell them that like history is nothing but just analyzing the steps that led from one thing to the next. You guys need to think about how you're going to end up from where you are to where you're going and apply that to history somehow. It's kind of convoluted.
Oh, look honestly. At you being all deep and getting deeper meaning out of this.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what the hell is the reason for this assignment based off of the initial, hey, let me get these kids interested in history somehow. That's the only thing I could think of. But again, it's a first stretch.
I think that's a good connection, though. I think you did really well for that. And I want to point out that Corey kind of is the only one we see take it really, really personal. Like Corey's like, you're dragging me down. I thought this through. I had like a baseball card. And,
with this Corey, he's like, you gave an incomplete to my future, or something like that. And Feeny kind of is like, whatever, kid.
So. Well, he gives him an incomplete because he's like, you have no clue how your affairs are managed, no education, and he gives him an incomplete. And Corey's like, that's an I, that's lower than an F. And what Corey says, which I like, is he goes, this isn't a quiz. You took away my future. And that kind of shows that Corey doesn't really see schoolwork as anything important because he doesn't understand how this applies. All of these things, as you said, Feeny's trying to teach him a lesson here that everything leads up to another, as you pointed out. And Corey immediately is like, giving me an incomplete on this particular assignment is giving me an incomplete in life.
Yeah, but I think by Feeny giving him the incomplete, Feeny's like, hey, if one thing leads to another and you're not even planning on graduating high school, then you're not going to lead to the thing that you want. He's trying to get him to think a little bit more thoroughly about it.
No, I agree with that. I'm just
know what's funny is that Corey's not going to learn this lesson from Feeny. Is there a way that we can get a highly successful baseball player to try to get this in the court? Is there any way we could just have one stop by the house?
So
no cash. This
is where I will say this is another TGIF episode because of that scene where we get a little bit later. To kind of wrap up the B plot first. Well, actually, in our next scene, we see Corey moping in his bedroom and removing all of his baseball stuff because he doesn't have a future. Which again, Corey is being over dramatic. Like,
I just want to make one observation about Corey.
Yeah.
This episode, he looked a little older. Did he not?
I didn't notice. These are kids to me. They look kids look like kids.
But I guess from the pilot to now, he just I noticed that in this bedroom scene that he just seemed a little bit more mature in his like appearance. I don't know. Keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, no. Actually, now that you said something, I will look into it. But he's still behaving so
quickly.
He's still behaving like Corey, though. So
yeah, he is for sure.
That's the thing. But I do like, in a way, Corey kind of has learned a little bit from this assignment because when Eric comes to like console him, and Eric's like, I'm looking at this car that I want to get in 3 years. Corey starts to ask probing questions. He's like, Corey starts to ask probing questions. He's like, how about insurance? And then Eric's like, well, Dad will help. And he's like, all right, well, what if Dad can't help? He goes, then I'll get another job.
Again, I don't think that Feeny did anything wrong. I think he was a good teacher by telling Corey and showing him that, like, hey, you need to, that there was no, like, I know in some episodes there's this thing where, like, Corey learns a little and Feeny learns a little. In this one, it's just like, no, Feeny's an adult and he was teaching this kid some realistic responsibility.
No, that's what I was going to say, is that Corey is like mad and depressed, and they're kind of showing him taking this a little too far. But also, if you look at it, he technically learned the lesson. He is questioning how Eric's going to be able to do all this.
Yeah, he is overreacting because Feeny hard pedals the reel a little bit.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to swallow that pill. Like, it's a tough one to swallow,
Also,
but the sooner you do it.
Yeah, also, I was just going to say that Corey basically just learned what it's like to be an adult, and he's pissed. And guess what? So are all adults.
So are all of us, bro. No one is. God, man.
Exactly. The moment you like get you like, oh, I want a new car. You do have to be like, well, what about insurance? And then where am I going to park it if you live in LA or New York? And it's just like all of these things that come with it. You can't just get a new car, and that's reality. And they kind of show it as like being a downer, but no.
Do you remember being in high school and just daydreaming about like, oh man, when I get my car, I'm going to take such good care of it.
Exactly.
It's going to be so nice. No. There's trash in my car right now.
Oh, dude, don't get me started. I mean, but like gas and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Tickets. I have a ticket today I'm supposed to pay. But anyway.
Look at that.
All right. So, again, this is when Corey's like, it wasn't just an assignment. It was my future. And I have an incomplete future. And Alan has come in and he's joined the boys. And Alan's like, everyone's future is incomplete. That's why it's the future. You know, if it
were complete, it would be the past.
The past, exactly. And that is kind of like you can kind of see the threads that they were trying to make with these storylines, which is that, you know, the future.
I think that the lesson that they're trying to teach, which is that everything leads to something else, isn't one that is kind of like outward throughout the story. Like, I feel like it took me like really searching hard to get that lesson out when it should have been something that was a little bit easier. Cause I don't know that you would necessarily even pick that up as the lesson if you were just watching this for the first time. I don't know.
So I have some theories, but we'll cover that when we get to our lesson portion of it. But anyway, so Feeny taught me. That's what I was thinking of when we get to Feeny taught me. Anyway, Corey, give me 1 second to find our place.
Well, Alan says, you know, I actually didn't want to do what I wanted to. You know, Corey's like, did you always talk about being a grocery store manager? And Alan's like, actually, I wanted to build bridges, which is the first time we're ever hearing about him wanting to be an engineer. And he's like, you know, life changes and I wanted to have a father and, you know, your dreams will change. And now my dream is to be the dad of a Philadelphia center fielder.
Yeah. But again, I like
cute.
It is. It's very cute. And then also, again, I think we do this a lot in the first season where we flesh out Alan kind of in these little heart-to-hearts. And you're right. This is the first time we hear about him wanting to be an engineer, but it does make sense that Alan would have wanted, you know, think about it. Very few people's job, our dream job, is to become a grocery store manager. So it makes sense that he would have wanted to do something different. And I like that he shares that with Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do just want to say that I feel that this relationship between Corey and Alan seems so much stronger than the relationship Alan has with Morgan or Eric, so much stronger than Amy and Corey. I do wonder if they're depending on that whole father knows best thing a little too much sometimes because the rest of the family seems excluded.
Well, I mean, this is the time where we have Home Improvement and The Cosby Show and Full House where there are three father figures. And again, we just get a lot of these sit down talks in this era. And it is kind of father knows bestie. So I just think you are right to acknowledge that, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
And again, I think like just looking at the episodes we've seen so far, it's kind of almost always a Corey, Mr. Feeny, and Alan triad, as we said.
Yeah. It's almost like that's like the major triad, and then there's also this kind of mini triad of like a bunch of mini triads of like Corey, Sean, and Minkus, and Corey, Sean, and Topanga, and Eric, Morgan, Amy. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where we're at. Speaking of the second triad, to wrap up our B list plot line, we enter a new scene and Jane, the mom of Stephanie, comes over, and immediately we get like this sense of air, and she's very pretentious, and I have words to say about her.
Well, we should say this, that Amy calls Jane, I guess the mother of Stephanie, and was like, "Hey, our girls did this really dumb thing. I want my necklace back." And the Jane, the adult woman, told this other adult woman, "Black, no trades back."
Yeah.
And so at the same time, we're supposed to believe that Jane is this highly sophisticated woman who threw this party for her 6-year-old that people had to dress in their Sunday's finest to. Yet at the same time, she's super shady about a necklace that she could probably afford many of. I don't know.
Here's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, this woman comes in, and immediately when Amy's like, "Would you like some coffee?" She's just like, "Just so you know, you're not getting the necklace back. It's not the value of it. It's Stephanie's attachment to it." And again, I'm like, this one's a bitch. Like,
just slap a bitch. Yeah. Exactly. You slap someone that comes to your house saying some stuff like that.
Exactly. How are you going to come to my house and tell me you're not going to give me my own property?
No, I'm going to go in the kitchen. I'm going to take that necklace right off her damn neck. Do something about it.
But turns out that Morgan and Amy have a better plan. And we cut to the girls who are in the kitchen, and I have to admit, I was like, Morgan is killing this scene.
Well, yeah. I mean, Morgan, she does have moments where her Michelle Tanner spunk really shines, and I felt like this moment we saw her really being precocious. And yeah. She's
just fun in it. She has so Morgan is like trying to convince Stephanie to trade with her, but she's giving her all these things. She has brownies and a diamond tiara and a My Little Pony. But yeah, I just love the whole. What is it? She does the when Morgan's presenting them to Stephanie. And she's like, "Ooh, brownie." She's like, You know, it's just like, it's very. She just has really good skills in this scene, and
sure, yeah, totally.
I liked her acting chops in this one for a kid, especially. But again, so let's go back to Jane for a little bit. You see the two moms talking, and she kind of puts in the fact that she doesn't have to work, because she kind of like, "Oh, do you work, Amy?" And she's like,
so damn rude. This whole interaction was this woman's so rude. Her daughter's rude. Kick him out of your damn house.
Exactly, please. And she even drops that like her husband's an attorney, and I'm like, what is your point in all of this? What was this woman trying to do?
I also don't understand the idea of a woman like bragging that her husband makes a lot of money. Like, you ain't doing nothing.
Exactly.
What are you bragging about?
Maybe we're too 2017 to like get why this was supposed to be a good thing. Like, I just
and I'm sure that's something real old school that like women have had to deal with, of just like their girlfriends. Oh, my husband took me on vacation and blah, blah, blah. And that whole thing of being envious about their husband's money situation. But now it's just like, girl, if you want to go on vacation, get yourself a job and go.
Exactly. It's just, like, again, I was like, what is this woman's end goal? Like, why would you come over to someone's house and just basically
why did they come over at all? That's a great question to ask.
But as a little tie-in, we come back in, and Stephanie is basically like she's in her little PJs, and she's handed everything over, including the necklace, and she traded it all for a brownie and a plastic pony. And it's really funny because that's when we get this little tie back of Stephanie saying that she also gave the car up to Morgan in this
which is ridiculous. Yeah. They're like, she's like, you traded your necklace for a tiara and for a pony and brownies? And she's like, well, I had to do something extra for the brownies. And Morgan's like, I'll need the keys to your car, please. And Amy's like, it's really not the value of the car, it's Morgan's attachment to it, which is like burn.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, but at the same time, it's like, How did that interaction actually end?
Yeah, how did that end? There's no way you're going to do it. But I think in point being is it was just to say that this family is not one that just sits by when something like that.
No, this was a gotcha bitch moment.
Exactly.
Gotcha bitch.
And I applaud them. They did very well. Both Amy and Morgan doing this little tag team. I liked it.
Yeah,
okay.
This isn't the first time Morgan's going to do this in her life.
Exactly. In the next scene, this is kind of funny. Eric's like sitting on the couch and there's this little bit of dialogue of him being like, she was doing the kissing. I was an innocent bystander and like defending himself. And then Corey comes in and snatches the phone and hangs up. And he's like, I didn't even know who that was. And I'm like, what is that even situation? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah. At this point, we don't know who Eric's kissing, who he's talking to. Do we even care? Does it matter?
Nah. Let's just move forward because Corey somehow understands. He calls Sean and he's just like, call everyone we know and tell them that Jim Abbott's in my kitchen. And again, this is where we get that sitcom walk-on.
Whoa, You're telling me that a professional athlete has never come into your living room
to teach me a lesson?
To teach you a lesson based on a day and a half of your parent asking them nicely.
Nope.
This isn't something that you had. I just feel like this was a normal part of my childhood.
Again, I did not notice this. According to Wikipedia, Jim Abbott doesn't have a right hand. So it is kind of cool. Or at least that's the one thing I did know about Jim Abbott is that he only had one hand. That's why he's a big deal. That's why when they were like, oh, like Corey, like, you know, lots of people told me that I wouldn't make it during my dreams. He was referring to this disability, but at the same time, it's like, gosh, man, get like Helen Keller or Stevie Wonder. Like, why don't you just get the most ridiculously inspiring person you could possibly find? Yeah, a living room appearance. No, it's not going to happen. Companies pay this guy money to make speeches. He's not doing these stops. I mean, this is, you know what, I like what you're basically doing is asking the writers to explain their work. Like you, like
they don't explain it. They say that Alan sent many telegrams, 63. And that's what. 63 telegrams in a matter of a day and a half.
We were still sending telegrams in 94.
I don't even know how to go about sending a telegram. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just call them?
I have to admit, I'm the same way. I have no idea how to.
A telegram, if I know this, is, hey, I'm going to send a letter to someone who I'm going to pay to go to your house and read the letter to you.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
That's a job?
I don't think it is anymore, but again...
Don't blame millennials on that. That thing was made. That wasn't going to last.
Was it still a thing back then?
I mean, this is 1993. We're seeing telegrams.
I mean, again, I want anyone who knows let us, like, just shout us out because I have to admit, in the 90s, I did hear a lot about singing telegrams, but I just don't know where you get them.
I also think that that's more of a television thing than an actual thing.
Okay.
I've never actually seen that in my actual life. I've only seen it on television. And they make it seem like you could just hire a barbershop quartet, put your name into any song like it's no big deal. I feel like it's probably a little bit more complicated.
You're right. You know what? I gotta admit, I haven't even seen like a barbershop quartet on Instagram. And I feel like that would be the place. Like if anyone off of this, turns out as again, Jim Abbott is inside of their living room. And he's there because Alan reached out.
Because why? He
said that he heard that Corey wants to be in the big leagues. And this is actually, it's a little fun bit. He says that he once had a coach who told him that he would never make it into the big leagues. And that only made him work twice as hard. And I gotta admit, I'm wondering who are these people who are telling kids that they can't do things like...
Yeah, apparently back in the day, teachers could just be as shitty and as real as they wanted to be and just be like, hey, kid, you're not going to succeed at all. Just being straight up with you. I mean, I've never had a teacher just blatantly tell me like, hey, you're not going to get your dreams. Give up.
Exactly. Again, maybe we're very fortunate, but I've never had a teacher just be like, yeah, that's not happening for you. I mean,
yeah, like just being so presumptuous as to say like, no, your future is pretty basic.
Exactly.
What?
But they do ask Corey, because Corey is Corey, asked Jim Abbott. He's like, when you were successful, did you rub your teacher's face in it? And he kind of makes a joke about how he didn't rub his face in it, but he did send him a video of his no hitter, which is like infamous at this point in time. But he also said that while Corey's like, well, you showed him. He's like, no, actually, he showed me. He sent me an application to the University of Michigan because he understood that even if I didn't make it to the pros, I need an education, which I think is, again, the underlying story of this. It's like
that only a professional athlete could teach. No, I know what the lesson is that Corey's learning because they made it so blatant and apparent, but they've just done it in such a ridiculously spectacular fashion that I can't take them seriously at this point. I can't. There's no reason for this guy to be in his living room. I can't justify it. They can't justify it. Expect more from your television, guys.
I don't know. According to Alan, you should just try anyway because a guy can dream. So,
and that's the thing. They add sentiment so you don't question it. They're like, well, Alan got his dream, so maybe Corey will get his.
I like it. I like your whole they added sentiment to deflect.
Yeah, of course. Because it's that all moment where you're just like, oh, well, that's sweet. Like, no, there's still a lot of holes in the story, but let's move on, I guess.
Okay, moving on. Corey is playing baseball and by himself, I want to add. He's throwing the ball against the wall and it bounces.
Playing baseball is being a little generous. He's throwing a ball on the wall.
Exactly. He's playing with the baseball. And it goes over into Feeny's yard, which of course makes it to where now Feeny and Corey have this little interaction over the fence as we're starting to do a lot. But I do like it because Feeny says, respect my property line and I'll respect your property. So Feeny is kind of always trying to establish that I'm your neighbor, but like, dude, still.
I actually think that I like Feeny. Sometimes I like Feeny better as a neighbor than a teacher. I feel like sometimes in the classroom, there's this immediate him versus me vibe that when Corey's just kind of hanging out in the backyard, you don't always get that guard up so quickly.
That's a very good point. And I'll try to be on the lookout for that because I think you're right. When Feeny's in the class, he's like a different person than when we see him be neighbor Feeny.
Sure, yeah. He just seems like he's like, hey, can I give you some advice just in the kind way? And I feel like Corey's more receptive to that than, hey, I have to read this book, roll my eyes, I don't want to do this.
Exactly. But Corey goes to Feeny and he's just like, you know what, Mr. Feeny, I am going to be a baseball player because a friend of my dad's, I don't want to name drop, but Jim Abbott.
Dropping names.
Exactly. It's just like he just is continuously dropping this kid's name, and I like it because it's a very Corey thing to do. But yeah,
hey, LeBron James was in my living room last night. Like, what? Like,
would you not talk about that for like a week?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it nonstop forever.
Exactly. But Corey says that he's going to turn pro after college because he wants to make a name for himself, which again is the right thing to do anyway.
I don't think there's another way, honestly. I don't know of a person going from 11th grade to professional baseball. It just, like his first way wasn't a way. It's not that he's like, all right, Feeny, I'll do it your way. It's no, that wasn't even an option.
Yeah, it was like if you were going to make it at all, you would have had to do this. Yeah. And you needed to know that you were going to have to do this.
Sure.
And again, I think that Feeny kind of rounds it out by being like, it sounds like this Abbott fella had his future well planned out and worked hard to get there. And you've learned this lesson again, maybe not in class, but you did learn the lesson. So I will give you some kind of reward for it. And then we get like the little joking bit of the balls being thrown back.
Well, Corey says like, hey, are you going to change my incomplete to an A? And Feeny's like, no. And then he grabs a box full of all of these sports balls that have come over to his yard and he spills them into Corey's yard and says, play ball.
Yeah.
And it has this moment of Feeny saying in so many non-Feeny ways, it's not that I don't support your dreams. I want you to be able to pursue your goals, and I want you to play baseball. Here's all your baseballs back. Go for it. I just want you to think things through and not immediately assume that it's going to be easy or that you're not going to have to work hard for the things that you want.
But that's what I was saying. Which let's, you know what? Let's just jump into a section called Feeny Taught Me. And off of that, this is where we discuss the lessons of the episode and the main takeaway. And I think you hit on the main takeaway earlier, but one of the lessons that I got from this was that, you know, it is both Alan and Feeny are right. It is okay to dream, but you have to like plan for it and work hard. One thing, even with Jim Abbott, that they keep pointing out is that hard work comes with it. When he was like, my teacher tried to squash my dreams, he's like, I had to work twice as hard.
You bring up, I'm sorry, you just saying this right now just made me realize that Alan is, hey, be a dreamer. Feeny is, hey, be more rational. Them taking those opposite approaches and trying to influence that on the Feeny. In the same way that when you had that no-hitter episode of staying up late, it's Feeny's, no, school is more important. Alan, no, fun and all those things. Recreation is just as important. It's just interesting to have the two of them constantly be like, well, I'm a little bit more country. Well, I'm a little bit more rock and roll. And just trying to use that to influence Corey's decision. That's just an interesting dynamic I never really thought of until you brought it up, really. So,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Those wheels are just turning in my head.
No. I mean, I brought it up for a reason. So, yeah. What would you say? What is your main takeaway from this now that we went through everything?
The main lesson clearly is black, no trades back. And that's what we need to walk away from, I think. No, the lesson, again, is that you need to think things through because the past isn't just the past. It's a series of events that leads to other events, and you need to think things through. Do I think that lesson was clearly articulated? I think it was in like a bunch of vague ways, and we kind of assume that this was it. I don't know. How you feel?
Yeah, honestly, let's go into grades because it is time to grade this one. And remember, at the end of the season, we're going to add up all the grades and then give the season a total GPA. This episode, I have to admit, I had like a B minus, but I'm probably going to downgrade it to like a
minus.
C. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do C minus. This was, for me, it wasn't anything worth like. Let's put it this way: if we were making like a greatest hits comp of Boy Meets World, I wouldn't include this on the DVD.
Which is crazy because I just remember this. I remember the pre-union vein so well. But you're right. Rewatching it, it just doesn't tie together. And this episode definitely could have been done better.
They do a much better job with this concept in the college years when we have plays with squirrels and all that. Like that class reunion idea is much more fleshed out and much better. More interesting, I think, than this was.
Well, yeah, and the lesson is completely different from that too. So, all right, cool. So those are our grades. You guys let us know what you think. Thank you again for listening. This is Bruh Meets World. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Bruh Meets World or email us at bruhmeetsworld@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at Extra Siege. That's XTRACEEJ. TC?
Braver Me, Instagram, Twitter, and Kendrick retweets all day, every day, except for the days I forget.
All right, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode. We will see you next time. Remember to dream, try, and do good.
CJ, can you just remind me one more time? I feel like I'm going to forget. It's dream, try, and do good. Dream, try, and do good. All right. I'm going to keep saying it to myself.
Later, bros. Bye.
Later, bruh. episode better than the first, but yeah, it's hard coming back from the last episode.
So it's really funny that you even say that, because I think this is another one where it's like a pre-union for me was like a classic. Like, I remembered this one more. I didn't remember it in detail, but I did remember the whole Corey our pre-union setup.
Sure. I mean, I definitely remembered the episode. I guess I don't know. To me, it just seemed a little. I mean, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. We will.
I'm trying to get you back on this Facebook call.
Yeah. You're fine. Because are you doing Facebook on your laptop?
Oh, I guess yeah. You try calling me again from Facebook, because for whatever reason it closed out the first time.
It says your device is busy, so maybe you have to call me.
All right.
Got it.
All right.
You see me?
Here we go.
1 second. All right. How you been? What's the latest? What it do?
I've had 2 people this weekend tell me I look like Lenny Kravitz. How do you think I've been?
That's a good thing.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, Lenny Kravitz. Good for you.
I mean, I don't see it, but I'll go with it. It's better than the Kenan Thompson I used to get.
Here's the thing I'm going to tell you that I've learned. When you are dark-skinned, you look like the closest dark-skinned person they could. Like any attribute.
Absolutely.
They're
like, let me try to match the skin color up. It's a matching game.
It really is. I get so many different things. And sometimes I see it. Sometimes I'm like, all right, I get that. And sometimes I'm like, is that the only tall black person you could think of?
Sure. Like, I can kind of see for you. I can see the Will Smith. I can see the LeBron. I can see those 2. But, like, for someone just to be like, hey, you look like any old black guy.
You look like Idris Elba. And you're like, he's like 2 shades darker than me. And
yeah, that's not even the same. That's not even the same brown.
Yeah. But like,
how am I sounding to you? Because you sound fine to me.
All right, so you sound like you have like the little phone issues, but it's the phone issue that we always have. You know what I mean? Where it gets like you get a little fuzzy.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Okay, because I'm in a room that's a little bigger. I didn't know if I sounded echoey or not.
So we won't have time to really get into this because we have a lot to do. But you moved.
Yeah, here I am.
Yeah. So where are you?
New place. I am living the dream of every millennial of being back with my mother while I save money. And the goal is to buy a house. So that's the goal for my 30th year is to buy a house.
You got buy house money?
If I live with my mom and don't kill myself for 6 months, yes.
Well, I mean, you're already doing better than me, so mazel.
I mean, Florida house, not California house. I get it.
Also, what I was going to say, speaking of mazel, TK got engaged.
TK did get engaged, and it seemed like she purposely made a point to say, hey, I know Ashley got engaged this exact same way, but I don't care.
Yeah, she did. Just that. Also, I have to say, a very part of me was like, I went to the first wedding, so
yeah. And to be honest, me and Christine were talking about this, how we thought Takara did not want to get married again. Well, they're getting married again because he wants to get married.
Well, actually, I spoke to Takara about this when she came to visit. The only reason why I didn't have any objection is I spoke to her specifically. And she was talking about how he's really traditional and he wants to do all these things. And he gets along with her family. And I was like, would you get married again? That's what I asked her that exact question directly. And her words were, yeah, I would do it. So that's why I don't have any qualms about it.
Yeah. No. I get that she would do it. I just also get that that's not something that she would. If he was cool with just like kicking it forever, like I feel like she would be cool with just kicking it.
I mean, I don't know. She did, again, she expressed when she was here a few things where it was like, okay. But at the exact same time, one thing that just always, if I tell you I don't want a public engagement and you do a public engagement.
Yeah.
To me, people like, I think like in the beginning, people were like, oh, well, but it was sweet and it was fine. But my whole thing is, I told you I didn't want it.
Yeah. And also, it's that thing of like, you know, people kind of enjoy moments differently. And if you have eyes on you, sometimes you can't have a genuine moment because you're worried about your perception. So why do that to someone who's,
Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing. It is what it is. C'est la vie. Mazel, as we say. Let's get into the episode and then we can catch up later on this week because I just have a lot.
Word.
All right. Class reunion, right?
Pre-union, yeah. Great title.
All right, 1 second. Let me get to my notes.
Lots of firsts in this episode.
I'm assuming